Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Lee Norwood with Annapolis College Consulting, and we are here today to help you understand what it takes to get into really highly selective colleges. There are a couple key pieces that go into having a student who's ready to really reach for that, what we call highly selective. I would say 20% acceptance rate and lower. So you're thinking Stanford, Caltech, Northwestern, Northeastern now, actually,
Yeah.
Duke, Harvard, Yale, those kinds of schools. We call them highly selective, and it almost doesn't matter how great your student is. It's what the college is looking for. So how do we take, and I'm going to introduce Maureen in a minute, but how do we take your kid who's at the top of their class, your kid who's got over 700 on both sides of the SAT and above a 34 on the ACT? They are outstanding at your high school. They're phenomenal. They're top 10%. But when they stand in line to go to the University of Chicago, they become average because everybody starts to look like them with those stats. I've told you 1,000 times, what is king? Transcript is king. The classes that you're taking really matter. Are you showing and pushing that rigor? And then are you ready for college? That shows in your AP tests, that shows in your SATs and your ACTs. But now the playing field is leveled and you are just standing in line with other exceptional people. How do we help you stand out? I'm about to introduce a great new partner of Application Blueprint and Annapolis College Consulting. It's Maureen Lavin with Polygence. Research is the key, folks, and we are going to unveil everything that came out in the Harvard lawsuit. They had to let us in. They had to pull back the covers and show us exactly what went on in the admissions office. And guess what? We're going to tell you what that is today, and we're going to give you some solutions. So Maureen, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Polygence, and then we'll jump into what you found out in the Harvard study.
Well, those of you who don't know, there's a lawsuit against Harvard right now that is in front of the Supreme Court. It was heard earlier this year, and the Supreme Court will probably be making their announcement in June. I mean, it has to be this year, so it's got to be in May or June. And they are going to make some decisions about the application process. So Harvard was forced to tell their secrets. They were forced to open the curtain, and while their admissions people were on the stand. So we know that not every student is thinking about Harvard. Harvard is not the best fit for every student, but we're looking at what the information they gave, because they are the school that was forced to tell their secrets. We know from talking to people that have worked at other elite colleges and other less selective colleges that other colleges use very, very similar rating systems when they're being accepted. So that makes you think, what does it take to get a 1 on Harvard?
So 1 is what you want, right? 1, right? Normally we're like 1 to 5, 5 is the best. In this situation, and I don't know if you could take that to full screen, Maureen, but so they're looking for a 1. And just to kind of put this in context for you guys, your student is a file, and they're looking at that file, and they're giving 12 minutes maybe to that file. So we want to make sure that everything is standing out, and we want to make sure that what your student has done has some oomph and some push to it. So again, they're going to look at your transcript first. You get through the first gate with those first things I just talked to you about: your class rank, your did you take the right curriculum, did you get good grades, and what's your test scores. Now they're starting to dig deep. So a 1 is what we want to go to on a scale of 1 to 4 in this example.
Yeah. So when you have the top grades and the top rigor, you're getting like a 2 or a 2+. Think about it this way. The students that have these top grades and top rigor, you're playing defense at that point. You're playing defense. You obviously are a student that's more than capable of doing the work once they get to the college. But they have a lot of schools like that, a lot of students like that. I'm going to take a moment actually and just veer off to another school, Stanford, because Lee commented a moment ago about looking at other schools as well and having the top grades. Last year, we moved away from my screen.
I took you so we could see your pretty face when you talked.
So last year, Stanford received over, I think over 24,000 applications from students that had a 4.0 or better and comparable test scores. So let's think about a 4.0 or better. Stanford only accepts like 2,100 students in their entirety. So that means they did not accept 22,000 students that have a 4.0 or better. That's just the nature of how competitive this is. And forget the poor student has a 3.9. These are kids that have a 4.0 or better. And, Stanford did not accept over 22,000 of them. Okay.
And I think another point, just we're going to go off and then go ahead and share your screen again, but these colleges have been accepting the same kids for years, for hundreds of years. They've been accepting the same kids. What's been going on in our world is that we've got some grade inflation going on now. You got like the pity A because you were there during COVID and they felt bad for you. Did you really learn it? We've got the ability to test over and over and over and over. So these kids are pushing their test scores. So even though these schools are taking the same kids, the rate of acceptance is going down because more kids are reaching high because either A, their grades are inflated and they feel like they can compete, or B, they've taken that test optional thing and said, you know what, I'm not a good test taker, but I rock at everything else. So I'm going to go for it. And I think we really need to be careful. This isn't meant to be negative, Nellie. There are 3,000 schools out there and your kid's going to go to a great one. We just want to talk to you and say, we got to see the man behind the curtain. And this is really what happens at that Ivy level.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. So you have your student at top grades, top rigor, but they're only getting a 2+. What is the thing that is moving the needle? The thing that is moving the needle is when students are submitting scholarly work, and especially things that are getting reviewed. And again, very similarly, last year, the University of Pennsylvania admission office announced that 1/3 of the students that were accepted have submitted some type of individual research that they did on their own. It could have been something they did in school, but research that they have done independently. Okay. So what is the key takeaway here? If a student has a 4 on the academic scale at Harvard, they've got less than a 1% chance of getting in. If they get a 3, they've got a 3.9% getting in. A 2, it's going up there, but it's still under a 9%. You can see right here where it really rises. And that's when you can get it from a 2 to a 1. And the best way to do that is through independent projects. A lot of these schools, the big buzzwords are intellectual curiosity, intellectual vitality, to show that you are willing to go above and beyond the typical high school curriculum in a subject matter that is important to you. They don't expect you to do it in every single subject matter, but when you do a deep dive and go beyond that high school curriculum and something that is important to you, that's what stands out.
This is so interesting to me because a lot of times in the past, before I got to know that there was someone we could go to get this kind of help, we were really looking for ways to make kids stand out. And there are still ways that you could make your student or your student can stand out that you could do right in your backyard. One great example, during COVID, we had a student whose father was a surgeon, and they had to do something special to his surgical masks in order for him to be able to do surgery during COVID. A lot of elective surgeries went away. That's how this man made money. So she found a 3D printer and got the specs for this thing that you put on these surgical masks to make them able for him to be able to use it. And he got to continue to put people through this orthoscopic knee surgery and things like that through COVID. That in a way is a research project, right? That she was able to create and do for herself. She wrote it up, but not everybody's dad is an orthoscopic surgeon. So don't feel when you're listening to this that, oh my gosh, I have to do something exceptional. And you do, but it can be in your own backyard. It can be something that's within an arm's reach from you, or you can really work with Polygence, and they're going to talk about this in a minute, and really do some super cool things.
Yeah, well, yes. And, also talking about it, one of the things about Polygence is that even though it is a program that that families pay for, we like to think that we're democratizing research. 10 years ago, 20 years, 30 years ago, the only high school students that were really doing research were students that had family connections to professors or colleges. And that was really the only way you were getting your foot in the door to do research when you're still in high school. And now there are companies like Polygence where we can connect you and help you be doing research in high school, even if your family doesn't have those connections. So what is Polygence? Polygence is an online mentoring program. But that's really, really what the main point of what it is. We have two founders, and they were on the Stanford campus. One of them had already finished his PhD in quantum physics from MIT. The other one was getting her PhD at Stanford. And they started talking about their own educational journeys. And they realized that both of them had mentors in high school. So the conversation went into like, how important is it to having a mentor, having somebody that is more experienced than you, that is willing to invest in you and invest in your education. And they realized that once they had mentors, their love of learning just took off. And it wasn't just limited to the subject matter that the mentor was in, it was across the board. So they started talking about that. Simultaneously, they started also discussing that most high school students really don't have that much control about the classes that they're taking. You know, either school boards or county boards or state governments are kind of deciding a lot of the classes that students have to take in high school. So they also started talking about like, what if the students had more control, more say over their own education? And this could be learning about topics that aren't typically taught in high school, like maybe like something like a cryptocurrency. That would be unusual for a high school curriculum to discuss, but it could also be something that you're learning about in high school, but you're not getting to learn as much as you'd like. Like for instance, you could be in your English class and love the poetry unit, but you know what? It's time for that unit to be over, so you move on to the next thing. But you really want to go back and learn more about poetry. So they came up with the idea of Polygence, where they match high school students with mentors. The vast majority of our mentors are PhD students. And our core research program is 10 sessions. The students choose the topic that they want to research, but they also choose a final deliverable project at the end. Now that project could be learning how to write a college level research paper. It could be, you know, creating an app, creating a website, creating a podcast, writing a book, writing a song. There's many outcomes for what our students can do, and our mentors can help the students get to the end of their project.
That is very, very interesting. I feel like I'm a mentor to our students in the journey and in helping to find the right fit of the school to help present them as well as they can be presented. That's why, and I want to thank each of you for giving me your most precious gift, which is your child. I promise you they're way nicer to me than they are to you. But it's great. And so I'm mentoring them through this process. But when it comes down to really moving the needle to get that score of 1, to get to that highly selective school, I love what Polygence does. And after Maureen gives you some examples of some of these research projects, I'm going to go backwards and talk about a few of our kids who have done another program Polygence does, which is called Pathfinders. And we've already had some really cool successes with that.
One of my favorite projects was we had a student who is a STEM student. And he said to his college counselor, I feel like I've spent so much of my time in high school focused on STEM subjects, and I have a real creative side too. I really love music. And so he came to Polygence, and he was matched with a music mentor, and he wrote a love song based on Van Gogh's Starry Night. And his college counselor is absolutely convinced that that project is what moved the needle for his ED1 application to Vanderbilt. He's a freshman now at Vanderbilt. So I just love that example, because like, it's not what you typically think. It's not a STEMmy project, but like I just am so impressed that he wrote a love song based on Van Gogh's Starry Night. It's on our website if anybody wants to hear it. Who loves sewing, loves costuming, and also loves like period pieces. And so she studied a decade in the 1800s and what women's fashions were at that time. And she designed costumes from high society women down to what servants would wear at that time. She, designed them, she drew them all out, and she chose one of the designs, and she sewed a gown. And that was her final project. She was applying to schools for costume design. So it's part of her portfolio.
That's amazing. What would be even better is if she had Blake Lively wear it at the Met Gala.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, you can share again if you want to.
We all think we know what research is, but it's the systematic investigation of a topic that leads to new discoveries. And this, if you work with a Polygence, this is the student's research. The student is not signing on to the mentor's research. This is the student's idea, and it's their project, and it is student first. But it's also giving the students the experience. A lot of our kids want to do research in college, and first of all, they're doing it in high school. So once they get to college, they're more successful about getting into the labs at college because they do have the experience of doing this. We also have a symposium twice a year in March and October, where our students that have completed their projects present them. They have the choice of presenting them if they'd like. And the students that present at the symposium even have a better odds of getting into the labs once they get to college, because now they have experience doing research and presenting research. So
they do this research. I know the answer, but I'm going to put it out there. Where do they show it in their college application?
Oh, so there's a few places. One, you can put it on your activity sheet. But then also, once Lee helps you start writing your supplement essay questions, those are also great places to write about it. So a very popular supplement essay question is like, why do you want this intended major, or why do you want to study this academic subject? That is a popular time for students to write about their Polygence projects. But another popular time is when they say, like, what was your favorite extracurricular that you did? Those are two very popular supplement essay questions. Another suggestion that I always have is that, like, especially like your teachers or your guidance counselors at school have to write you letters of recommendations.
Right.
They have so many students that they write for, especially guidance counselors. There's no way they can keep track of every single thing that students are doing outside of school. So my suggestion is, give them like a little summary, a little write-up about your project so that they can include information about the project in their letters of recommendation. And that just makes your work, like more legitimate, more credible. They can really go off on it. So that's a suggestion I always make to students as well.
Yeah, I think those are two great times. And for those of you who work with us on one-on-one, we also have something called Livestream Digital, and we put together digital resumes for kids. Mm-hmm. So when a college says you're allowed to upload a resume, that's still written in material. What Livestream allows us to do is show photos of what your student has been doing, show the actual paper they wrote, maybe show the press release I talked them into writing, and then the coverage they got in the local paper. So that is something that is free for you if you're working one-on-one with us. And if not, we could talk about that later, and we did a talk on that, but it is a great way that we can also put that right in additional information, which we want to use sparingly. But if we're going to take your time away from the application to look at something in additional information, we want it to be good. So I love having that visual aspect, but thank you, Maureen. I love the idea of adding it in as something you touch on when you're writing.
Come to campus and take advantage of those resources. So when you hear them bragging about all their research opportunities, they have to make sure that the seats for those research opportunities are taken. And so the best indicator to them that you are somebody that is going to come to the campus and participate in whatever opportunity that you're saying you're going to participate in on your application is if you've actually done it in high school. So when students are participating in research in high school, it gives the university an indication that you're going to come to college and do the same. Come to campus and take advantage of those resources. So when you hear them bragging about all their research opportunities, they have to make sure that the seats for those research opportunities are taken. And so the best indicator to them that you're somebody that is going to come to the campus and participate in whatever opportunity that you're saying you're going to participate in on your application is if you've actually done it in high school. So when students are participating in research in high school, it gives the university an indication that you're going to come to college and do the same. Come to campus and take advantage of those resources. So when you hear them bragging about all their research opportunities, they have to make sure that the seats for those research opportunities are taken. And so the best indicator to them that you're somebody that is going to come to the campus and participate. And again, so much of research is about the money, it's about what are the college's value. Okay. So what is the Polygence program? Our core program is 10 sessions. And we 100% have students that do all 10 sessions in a summer. They can do one session a week for 10 weeks and they're able to complete it. It takes some motivation and some commitment on the student's part. On average, we're seeing that students take about 4.5 months to do a project because most of the students have some work that they're doing during the school year. And we know that obviously students are very busy during the school year. So if you have anyone that wants to do a program in the summer, we absolutely can accommodate that, but just know it's going to take a little bit of work on the student's behalf. So we have milestones along the way through the 10 sessions, and we start with an intro session where, again, the students are learning about this topic that they've chosen and they're really interested in it. But then they're also learning about how do you write a research question? How do you write an outline for a project? And then by session 5, they've got a draft of the first half. And by session 8, they've got a draft of the entire project. But also part of this is the students are learning soft skills along the way. First of all, they're learning how to communicate with a mentor, but they're learning, again, how do you do this research? How do you're getting homework, but also how do you write these outlines? They're picking up skills along the way, along with getting a hard skill of a final project, whatever that is.
I love that. That is. So for those of you listening, if you've got kids in the class of 2024, I know I have some 2025s on here too. We got a boogie. If this is something that you think you want to add in, I am 100% on board to help with the brainstorming and get them through something like this. I like it. 10 weeks, gosh, got to go on vacation in the middle of there sometime, Maureen, but it sounds like it'll work.
Yeah, and part of the whole Polygence program is it's very flexible. So again, like for especially for like athletes that are in the summer and they're on club teams or travel teams and they've got sports every afternoon and games, whatever, they can be doing their work in the morning. Or if a family travels and, as long as you have Wi-Fi, you can do it. So the whole idea of Polygence is very flexible to the students' schedules. Okay. Oops. Okay. College admissions data. First of all, Polygence is, we are committed to being student driven and helping the students learn about topics that they are authentically interested in. We want them to grow as people first, but while they're doing that, simultaneously be helping their college admissions process. So, because it's important to all of us. So you can see at our numbers here that, our Polygence alumni have higher acceptance rates to these universities than the average acceptance rates. I mean, again, top 10 liberal arts schools like Amherst, Williams. I mean, those are in the top 20, like when at the very beginning of this, when Lee was talking about highly selective schools, these are highly selective schools. And our alumni rate is at 50% getting into these schools. I mean, look, getting into MIT is not 33%. but it has been for our students. Same with the Ivy League as a whole, we're at 26%, and that's much higher than the numbers that you and I usually hear about in the news.
Yeah, those numbers are what I call, if you're in the teens of being selective, we call you highly rejective. And if you get into the single digits, we call it a lottery. And I
Yes.
don't ever want a student to buy more than 3 lottery tickets, right? You don't want to have more than 2 or 3 of those super reach schools. But to be able to add serious research, now you're getting to the point where those are no longer a lottery. They're more of just a reach for you, and you're really upping your chances.
Funny, we just had a student who was a freshman at Princeton speak to us about 2 weeks ago. And, he basically said that he went to Princeton and he connected with a physics professor that was doing a very similar research to what he did for his Polygence project. And because he was already so knowledgeable on the topic, he made it right into that professor's lab. But not only that, is that professor now, as a freshman, that professor is now his mentor at college.
Perfect.
And that mentor has also, opened the door and wrote him letters of recommendation and connected him to another research program that he is now working at that lab this coming summer. So it was his Polygence project and the topic of his project that helped get him into Princeton. We're not going to take all the credit. The student obviously was, I'm sure, stand out in other ways, but it was the topic of his project that really opened the door into the lab at Princeton that has now opened the door for other things. And it's all building on top. And then also, I think this student was also talking about how he realized how important it was to have a mentor, and it was one of his goals to find a mentor very quickly once he got to campus.
Well, that's a motivated kid right there.
Yep.
Sometimes they walk different, talk different, or just completely different right from the start. But if any of you go to the YouTube page and look at the videos that I have in our new parent watch list, Malcolm Gladwell does a talk, and he talks about the value of being published. The bottom third of Harvard students are often never published at all. So to be able to have and go right into research your freshman year, your chance of getting published, I mean, it's in some disciplines, it's a ride or die, if you get published or not. It's just going to help those stats. So even if you didn't go to, say, a Harvard, who cares about Harvard undergrad? Everybody wants to get in for the grad program. That's what that's about. So go to another school with something like this and graduate in the top 10% of your class. It is relative to where you graduate in your class that then rolls into your success rate later. So it's not only setting you up for these super highly selective schools, it's setting you up for being super ready for grad school. And that's what a lot of these huge Ivies are really basing themselves on. They like their postgraduate. Yeah. And that's where people ask you where you went to school. So there's lots of different ways to kind of look and slice and dice this. But again, I digress. I give it back to you.
Actually, I'm going to jump off of what you were saying for a minute. First of all, another thing about projects like this, it's not necessarily to get every student into like the absolute best school that they can get into. It can really help get merit scholarships, or it can help you get into the honors colleges at a lot of state schools. So there are other people that are also looking at projects like this and evaluating them and valuing them for what they are. A student taking the effort to go out and do work on their own. More
money, because you're a good risk at the University of Oregon. If you already did research in high school, something, let's just pick, I don't know, marine science, and you did something like that in high school, you're going to get into their honors program. You're going to get their maximum scholarship, and you're probably going to be invited to do research right off the bat. And they've got really cool new labs too, just to let you know.
Yeah. And I'm just going to add something else that someone that I know that was an admission officer at Dartmouth for several years. One of the things that she also talked about a lot was being smart and nice. Isn't necessarily the greatest in applications. Nice kids land on their feet. And when an admission officer is reading an application and it just comes up, they're a nice, smart kid. It's easy to think, oh, this is a nice kid. And in the real world, we want nice kids. But when you're reading that application, it's like, oh, this is a nice kid. This kid is going to do great. Next, what you want to do is you want to create an application that's going to create a sense of urgency. You want the admission officer to be reading that application going, wow, this kid is already doing a lot. And I don't want to miss out on this kid. I want this kid on our campus, because if they have only a limited number of seats for every freshman class. And if they're offering you one of those seats, then it's a precious commodity. And they're taking a chance that you're going to come to the campus and become a doer. You're going to come and just get involved and be an influencer. Like, take that phrase, you're going to be an influencer and be influencing the community around you on that college campus. And they're also taking a chance that they're going to open, Time Magazine 10 years after you graduated, or they're going to open Forbes 30 under 30, and they're going to be reading about you, and they're going to want that college's name attached to you. So, again, in real life, we want smart, nice kids because they're wonderful. But when you're thinking about an application, you want to create a sense of urgency. And what does that? Individualized projects.
Love it. Tell us a little bit more. Let's get through these projects.
Okay. So let's go back. I'm going back. Okay. Okay.
So Maureen just came back from a big meeting out in Seattle with a bunch of people who do what I do. And it's just, we do a lot to keep our swords sharp. So she really knows what she's talking about. This is super exciting for me. Because this is not the 90s. When we went to college, you could get in with a 1050, this ain't your mama's college application anymore. So I find this I love this stuff. I love it, love it, love it.
So I'm going to go a little faster because I want to get to Pathfinders, but students can get 3 college credits from the UCI GADI program for doing a Polygence project. There are some guidelines, like it has to be a research paper, but that is something I'd like just to touch on. Like I mentioned, we have symposiums that we do twice a year. The next one is September 23rd for people that are finished with their projects. But let's get to Pathfinders, because Pathfinders is super exciting. So here at Polygence, we take feedback very, very seriously. And one piece of feedback that we heard repeatedly was that there was a student that wanted to do research, but maybe they had multiple interests and they didn't know quite how to narrow it down. So we created this Pathfinders program where students can do, they can choose 3 topics, and they get matched with one mentor in each of those 3 topics. And they can have a 1-hour session with each of the mentors where they can ask them, what's it like to major in physics? If I majored in physics, what are the classes I would take? What are the extracurriculars? What are the internships that I could potentially do in college? What careers would be open to me if I majored in physics? They can ask them, how did you get involved in physics? Or can you give me ideas for things that I could do while I'm still in high school to prepare for a major in physics? So that's our Pathfinders program. So yeah, we love it. And Lee, I know that you've had several students go through the process so far.
I have, and I want to brag on a few of them. So, I'm so fortunate that you chose me as a preferred partner, because I was able to offer this out to about 7 of our one-on-one clients. And I always ask them, and kids sometimes don't know what the value of money is. Would this have been worth $595? They don't know the answer to that. But I asked them, how did it go and what did you learn? So one of our students, she was dead set on international business and finance. That was what she was going to do. But she also, liked looking at different economies and different things overseas. After she met with her 3 different mentors, she is going to absolutely 100% change her major to economics. She talked to 3 people. She really identified. So selecting her major really became very clear to her through doing that process. I had another student who I think she talked to someone in law, she talked to someone in overseas journalism, and someone in film school. And they basically asked her where she saw herself further down the line. She was going to major in film and minor in journalism. She came back out of it and said, I'm going into international PR. that's what I want to do. I want to be that writer first, and the film is going to fulfill my artsy side, but I don't want to be that starving artist, because my robust feelings towards this is towards international news. So how cool is that? You know, because half of us, I didn't even know what I wanted to be when I grew up. We didn't even have cell phones when I was in college, and now it's this whole industry. I think there's a lot of things to come, and to have students now be able to talk to people just 5, 8, 10 years older than them that are really in it and see where the world is going. I think that is, I think it's a unique and really cool thing you don't have to know what you want to do when you go to college. I wholeheartedly believe college and can be something that helps you learn who you are. But for those kids who kind of do know what they want to do now, but they're all over the place, and, you know, they look at one college with 8 schools in it and 550 different classes, this really helps them narrow down to see what their end game is. And the kids who did it loved it, Maureen. And, you know, some of your mentors are better than others, but I think Maureen pre-preps them really well. You give them a list of questions. They don't fly into it blind. And, you know, I'm going to offer it to more of our sophomores, because I think that some of them, if they have a maturity level, so if you're a parent of a sophomore, I really think you should consider looking into this Pathfinders to kind of help direct your student, because as I've told you, we want a thread of consistent interest through the application. And if you can get your path kind of narrowed down a little bit, it's a lot easier for you to do things that kind of feed into that thread of interest.
Absolutely. You know, one piece of feedback that I hear from the students all the time is that it's so interesting to talk to a real person. Real person is what they say all the time. And, you know, part of it is that, you know, the students are so interested in industries that didn't exist when their parents went to college, or their parents' friends and relatives went to college. So in their circle, they might not know anybody who's working in that industry. So because it didn't exist, you know, and so having the ability to talk to somebody would not be open to them if not for something like this. You know, they just don't have family connections. Pathfinders, you're meeting like a mentor one time. You're meeting 3 different mentors, but you're only meeting them one time. You're not doing research. You're not doing research in that session. It's an opportunity to explore an intended major or explore an intended career. Right. And so it's really nothing that you can use on a resume. You're just talking to somebody. What's it like to be a lawyer? What's the day-to-day like, and things like that.
Well, and I know this student. And I know he's thinking about, does he want to do business? Does he want to do science? He's not really sure. So yeah, let me tell you, if you do this and you talk to 3 different mentors, it is going to be something in your application that you'll probably use when you're writing your essays, because it's going to show them that you had interests and you tried to narrow them down. Once you've narrowed them down, then I would say, let's roll forward with a research project for. And then what is the optimal time for a student to do Pathfinders, sophomore or junior year? Wow. Yes, both, and.
Yeah. So again, kind of yes, and both. And yeah. So for the last, I would say month and a half, 2 months, I've been talking to juniors saying, TikTok, TikTok. You know, Lee can tell you how crazy busy senior fall is going to be. So if a student really wants to do that core program, you know, to do Pathfinders and then the core program, I mean, it would be very difficult to get them all in and be done before you go back to school, or be far enough along in your project that you have material to talk about in your essays. You know, in different potential careers or intended majors, you know, come back and do it in the spring of senior year when your schedule is a lot lighter. You know, we have college students reaching out to do Pathfinders because they're still like, oh, what's my major going to be? And so, you know, we have college students still wanting to do it. You know, sophomore year is a great time, even freshman year.
It is. I think it really depends on the maturity of your student too, right? Is your student ready to dig deep and say, hey, I've got a lawn mowing business forever. I'm pretty sure I want to go into that, but I'm being pushed by my family to go into finance, but I know I want to do something overseas. shoot, have a freshman talk to 3 people who've done those and talk about the cool careers that are popping up from that. So I hope that answered you, Kara. I'm so handsy. I see myself in the other screen. But for the solid research, the way the summer's going to go, we're going to finish that common application. That's going to be the main essay, all your activities, all of that stuff. If you're doing the virtual or the digital resume, you're going to be working on that too. Then all of you, I tried to talk you out of doing the August SAT because things are going to be boogie, and we're going to boogie. It's going to be busy. They're going to be seniors, and on August 1st, all of the supplemental questions for those colleges come out, and we're going to be writing those essays. Our kids go early. Why? Because that's where the money is. They usually offer the most merit aid when you go in early. So we want to have you wrapped up as a nice burrito package. But the caveat is we can talk about the fact that you are doing a research project, because our kids have half days senior year. Yeah. You have to do an internship. You have to take a class at the community college, or you need to do something. Our seniors might be okay doing Polygence.
Absolutely. You can
might
say,
be fine with it.
Yeah, I know plenty of kids that say that they have something in progress. They have something in progress on their application, and that's great too.
Yeah, and it is a way to show the college, what did you do with your free time when you weren't in school? Well, I was working on this this research project, which is valid and valuable. So I'm going to backtrack and say the kids in this county or any other county, when you do have the ability to do that half schedule senior year. I loved high school. I didn't want to do a half schedule, but they do it. And this would fill that requirement too.
Yep.
So I learned something every time I talk to people. Do we want to do the Pathfinders program? Please get in touch with me as soon as possible. If you're a senior and you think you want to do the research project, talk to me really soon. We'll talk through whether it's going to fit in your schedule, and I'm going to connect you with Maureen ASAP. Yes. It's super easy to get started, and I just want to thank you for your time tonight. I am here to guide you. I'm going to let Maureen close it out.
Yeah, I just thought of something else. For those that are interested in learning about research projects, like what you can do, I'm also a hands person. You can go on polygence.org and you could click on projects. And those are completed projects that students have given us permission to post. And they're broken down by subject matter. So you could pick chemistry and read and see what other students have done with chemistry. If you're looking at those, some students that have written research papers have actually given us permission to link their research paper up. So you could actually read what another student has done and actually read a real research paper done by one of our students. Also, some of those students have given permission for us to link their symposium presentation. So you can watch their symposium presentation and learn more. But then there's another place that if you go all the way to the bottom of the page, you're going to see project ideas. Click on that. Also, if you look at it's also broken down by subject matter. So you could click chemistry again. And in there, you're going to find ideas for projects that the mentors have suggested, things that the mentors think would be a great idea. So look around and see what other people are suggesting, what other people have done, because it might spark something for you as well. But that's it. So other than that, thank you for coming. I always love to talk about Polygence. And I love talking to the kids. These kids are, again, so, inspiring. Like Lee said, I went to high school a long time ago, and, like none of us were doing this stuff. We were going home watching General Hospital after school. And and that's what we were doing. And like now these kids, like, they've just got so much going. They have so much going on, but they're also like changing the world. I can't tell how many of our kids are doing environmental projects. They're the ones that are going to save us. So thank you for coming out and listening.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. Thanks, everybody. Mental health is first. Do not overburden your child. If they can't handle this, let's not do it, but let's talk through it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for giving us your most precious commodity. That is your teenager. So we speak teenager. Maureen and I are here to light the world on fire. Thanks so much. We will see you soon, and stay tuned and look up. We've got a bunch of different great topics coming up through the summer. So we'll hope to see you again soon. Thanks, Maureen.
Thanks. Bye.